In 20th century comparative mythology, the term Axis Mundi, also called the cosmic axis, world pillar, center of the world, or world tree, has been greatly extended to refer to any mythological concept representing the connection between heaven and earth, or the higher and lower realms. Mirtre Eliade introduced the concept in the 1950s. Axis Mundi closely relates to the mythological concept of the Omphalos, or the navel of the world or cosmos. Items adduced as examples of the Axis Mundi by comparative mythologists include plants, notably a tree but also other types of plants such as a vine or stalk, a mountain, a column of smoke or fire, or a product of human manufacture such as a staff, a tower, a ladder, a staircase, a maypole, a cross, a steeple, a rope, a totem pole, a pillar, a spire. Its proximity to heaven may carry implications that are chiefly religious. For example, a pagoda, a temple mount, or a church. Or secular. For example, an obelisk, a lighthouse, a rocket, a skyscraper. The image appears in religious and secular contexts. The Axis Mundi symbol may be found in cultures utilizing shamanic practices or animist belief systems, in major world religions, and in technologically advanced urban centers. In Mirtre Eliade's opinion, every microcosm, every inhabited region has a center, that is to say, a place that is sacred above all. The Axis Mundi, in spiritual terms, typically represents the center of a sacred space, or the center of a power place, and it can be found in all ancient cultures as well as modern cultures. For example, in ancient Egypt, the obelisk was representative of the Axis Mundi, or the center of power, and the center of spiritual power as well as physical power. And in ancient Greece, we have the example of the Omphalos, which was also a symbol of the center of a sacred space, or the center of a power place. In the yoga tradition in India, we find the Shiva Lingam, which again represents this Omphalos, or this Axis Mundi, and this center in a power place or sacred space that is connecting heaven and earth. It's connecting heaven and earth, much like a Buddhist stupa, for example, where we also find the symbolism of connecting heaven and earth, and it is again the center of a sacred space for Buddhists. And in ancient times, we also had the examples of pillars, and pillars of fire, but also pillars made of stone that represented the Axis Mundi, or the center of a sacred space, and again was also symbolic of connecting heaven to earth. And also you have the imagery of spiral staircases and ladders, which also connect heaven to earth and represent the center of power. And in the Native American traditions of the Northwest, you have the totem pole, which again represents this Axis Mundi, or Omphalos, the center of power, the center of a sacred space connecting heaven to earth. Even in Christian symbolism, we find the steeple and the cross atop the steeple, which again represents this Axis Mundi within the Christian traditions, and connects heaven to earth within a church or a sacred Christian space. Around 12,000 years ago, there was a great destruction that occurred on planet Earth, probably due to a partial comet impact or something of that nature, which created a sort of mini ice age and a lot of flooding, dramatic flooding. and killed off all of the megafauna at that time. And humans also almost went extinct at that time during the Younger Dryas, this geological period. This destruction occurred toward the end of the last golden age, or Satya Yuga, as it is known within the Indian cosmology. A famous guru from my lineage, Swami Sri Yukteswar, corrected some mathematical errors regarding the Yugas in his book, The Holy Science, and he developed a 24,000-year Yuga cycle that closely matches the 26,000-year cycle of the precession of the equinoxes. At the end of Satya Yuga, after this great destruction occurred, small groups of secret priesthoods and secret societies moved about the planet, preserving the wisdom of Satya Yuga and teaching other groups of humans about the secret wisdom preserved within these secret priesthoods and secret societies. And this went on for thousands of years. According to my research and my own personal travels and experiences, it is my conclusion that one of these priesthoods resided in the area of Cusco and Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, Cusco, Peru, in that general area. And they preserved a lot of the teachings there in their isolated, remote spiritual academies and institutes, basically, where they initiated new prospective heirs to the wisdom of Satya Yuga, and they preserved these teachings, and this went on for thousands of years. So Sri Yukteswar, in his famous text, The Holy Science, decoded the ancient Vedic tradition of the Yugas, or eras, or epochs, or cycles in time. And one of these cycles, or eras, is a golden age. And we're looking here, especially if you look at the original wall, at an example of something probably built during this golden age, some 10,000, 12,000 years ago. Nobody knows exactly for sure. This golden age was ended by a giant cataclysm, a comet or asteroid or something, at the end of the Younger Dryas, which is the last ice age, that created a deep freeze, and then a great sudden thaw that created giant global floods that wiped out many of the civilizations along the coastlines, like in India, for example, where you find super old cities underwater off the coast. However, here in Peru and Bolivia, we're up, right now, 12,000 feet above sea level, and while the cataclysm, I'm sure, did affect people involved with the builders of these monuments, here at 12,000 feet with these earthquake-proof walls, we have preserved remnants of this golden age, of this advanced civilization, the civilization that understood the energy currents that flow within the earth, ley lines, vortexes, earth chakras, and they built their sites here to harness the power of the planet and perform their religious rites and to quicken their spiritual evolution. When you're in a power place such as this, that resonates with such a high vibration, you can quicken your spiritual evolution. The ancients knew this. That's why they built their sites along these sacred energy nadis, these earth nadis and earth chakras. Mahavatar Babaji, who is an avatar or ascended master, and really the first guru, you could say, in my lineage of Kriya Yoga masters. In the mid-1800s, he met Lahiri Mahashaya in the Himalayas and taught him for 2 weeks and allowed Lahiri Mahashaya to take some of these secret teachings back out into the world, away from the secret priesthoods and back out into society, so that we could all have access to the wisdom of Satya Yuga. Well, the main teaching in Kriya Yoga, or the main practice in Kriya Yoga, has to do with a specific pranayama practice that occurs in the spine, or really in the Sushumna Nadi. And so when this information began to come back into public awareness, as it had been during Satya Yuga, some 10,000 years ago, it became very apparent that all of the symbolism around the Omphalos, around the Axis Mundi, around obelisks, around pillars, around steeples, all of these were symbols of the human spine. And so this knowledge and wisdom had been preserved through the ages by the secret priesthood in a very symbolic manner, via obelisks, via steeples, via all of the other symbols that represent the Axis Mundi, or the Omphalos, such as the Shiva Lingam, etc. All of these represent the human spine at the end of the day. So that was the great secret that has become revealed over the last 150 years or so. And so now we know that this was actually just symbolism that was being preserved by a sort of secretive group of initiates for thousands of years, preserving the knowledge of the human spine and the fact that the human spine is really the door to the soul. And we learn this through our Kriya Pranayama practice as we activate and open our Sushumna Nadi, which is the central energetic channel in the astral body that is located in the physical spine. And we learn how to draw the prana into the Sushumna once it's open and active, which sometimes takes years to accomplish. But once the prana is flowing freely in the Sushumna Nadi, it allows us to drastically accelerate our spiritual evolution, burn through a lot of karma, and also draw the prana and attention up into the higher chakras, activating the higher chakras, and experiencing elevated and illuminated states of consciousness. This is the great secret, that the Axis Mundi is really just a symbol of the human spine. If you want to learn more about Kriya Yoga, I strongly recommend to read the Autobiography of a Yogi, which is the preeminent text, really, in our lineage, the most important book written by any Kriya guru from my lineage. And please try to read the original version. The newer versions have a lot of changes and corruptions from SRF. So try to get your hands on the original version as it was originally printed, as Yogananda really intended it to be. As we learn from Hermes in the Emerald Tablet, as above, so below. And so there are microcosms and macrocosms everywhere, fractals happening at every level of reality and existence. And I believe that nadis and chakras are no different. In other words, I believe that the planet Earth also possesses a series of nadis or meridians or ley lines, they're sometimes called, and Earth chakras, or power places or vortices. And so much has been made in the past decade of the idea that the Kundalini of the planet, the Shakti of the planet, has moved from the Himalayas to the Andes Mountains. I tend to believe that myself, having lived here for 8 years and traveled widely in Chile and Argentina and Bolivia and Peru. And I really do feel the Shakti here. And just through some insights and realizations I've had, meditating here in the Andes, I've come to think of the Andes as the spine of the planet, and that the Sushumna Nadi of the planet really does run through the Andes, and there is indeed a series of chakras. so that the Andes Mountains range is really a macrocosm of the human spine, and so it really is the spine of the planet, the Sushumna Nadi of the planet. And I do believe that the Muladhara is somewhere in Colombia, the Svadhisthana somewhere around Quito, Ecuador, probably, the Manipura in northern Peru, and the Anahata, or heart chakra, is around Cusco and Lake Titicaca. That really is the center of power in the Andes Mountains. And then, and also San Pedro de Atacama, the desert of northern Chile, is a very, very powerful place, and I include that in the heart chakra as well. Then moving down to the Vashuda Chakra, that's somewhere around Aconcagua, which is the highest peak in the Western Hemisphere, on the border of Chile and Argentina. Also around there, probably included, is maybe the Elqui Valley, a little north of Santiago, another really powerful spot. And over into Mendoza, Argentina, Cajon del Maipo, another beautiful power place close to Santiago, Chile. And then moving down to the Agna Chakra, that's where we live here in southern Chile, where our ashram is located, and close to Volcan Villarrica and Volcan Lanin, two very, very powerful volcanoes. We're surrounded by hot springs. The thermal activity here is really amazing, super juicy spot, and a lot of supernatural activity here, paranormal activity, and it really is a place that you can awaken your intuition, your discernment, and your psychic abilities and powers via the power of this third eye chakra here in the Andes Mountains. It really is a beautiful, beautiful place. And then the Sahasrara, probably further south, somewhere near Torres del Paine, Chile. Okay, and so there are fractals happening at every level of existence. There are microcosms and macrocosms of everything. And so we continue to practice Kriya Yoga here in the beautiful Andes Mountains, in the Sushumna Nadi and third eye chakra of the planet. Namaste.